Welcome to the NYSAC 2020 Legislative Conference. This is the New York State Association of Counties. This is a 95-year anniversary for this association, which has been training and educating county officials from all across the state for nearly 100 years.
I am pleased to welcome our newest members. In November, we had 200 new county officials elected in their communities. Welcome to county government. Please.
This is a conference about education. It's about training. Folks will come here from all corners of the state and really train each other. And the purpose of education is you don't get a manual when you come into county government. This is the manual. These are the instructions to take back home about state policy, about shared services, what are other counties doing around the state, and this is the forum where they'll get all that information in one place.
Well, I can tell you, as certainly as a 7-year member of this board, it's been pivotal in my success locally back home in Ontario County, but certainly here as well. An opportunity today to actually meet over 200, close to 200 new legislators that are just elected. An opportunity to pass along our education to them, certainly to enhance their growth as county legislators.
You'll get classes on finances, you'll get classes on the environment, you'll get classes on budget, you'll get classes on how to look at future revenue spending, how to look at your budget overall when it comes to taxes. But most importantly, you're networking with your peers, and you're trying to figure it out together.
It's an opportunity for new legislators to understand a broader perspective than what they may have been aware of when they just came into the office, knowing their local issues. They find that there are statewide issues that are affecting them perhaps even more.
I'm a fan of NYSAC, always have been. I look forward to all the things that we're going to learn and meet with today in today's meeting.
The education sessions are very important because it allows you to find out what's going on around the state. It also allows you to look at issues that are very important to communities around the state. And also we have experts that speak on various topics, and we can take that learning back to our communities as we looking to pass and approve legislation.
Get a lot out of it. It's a great thing to be here and then bring what I've learned here back to the county.
The interaction, the information that's available through being able to interact with my fellow colleagues and legislators here in Albany is invaluable. Also, the quality of the workshops is outstanding. Over the years, when I first started to attend the NYSAC conferences, being from Wyoming County, one of the smallest counties in the state, we probably only brought 3 or 4 people. Now we bring anywhere from 14 to 18 people.
The big challenge this year is dealing with the $6 billion budget gap, and much of that driven by a significant increase in Medicaid spending and costs. Notably, the state's fiscal challenges right now come at a time when our economy is relatively strong, and in fact, tax collections are more than $1 billion above projections for the year. So we still have this challenge, but it's in the context of a relatively strong economic time that's driving revenues. Clearly, the unexpectedly high increase in Medicaid costs over the past year is driving the conversation. As you know, the executive budget outlines some steps meant to deal with this. I know that counties and NYSAC in New York City have very significant questions and concerns about those proposals, as well as other aspects of the budget. The governor, as you also know, has convened a new Medicaid redesign team charged with identifying $2.5 billion in state savings during the coming year. We don't know who all is going to be on the team yet. We do know it's headed by Michael Dowling from Northwell and Dennis Rivera from 1199. Many of you know Michael and Dennis. They've been around for a long time. They are very smart and skilled individuals on issues of health care and on the politics of Albany as well. Don't underestimate their ability to deliver on the governor's promise. I think, Steve, you would agree. You've dealt with both of them. But some other factors that I know you're aware of. It's important that everyone keep in mind that the financial plan shows this $2.5 billion figure rising to $3.5 billion within 3 years. And because we are talking about state savings, the overall impact on Medicaid spending, including federal and local funding, will drive that amount even higher. In short, we're talking about a lot of dollars and some very important decisions to be made in a very tight time frame. You know, one of the questions that we have with what the Medicaid redesign team will come up with, will any of that require a legislative action? And depending on when they get it done, you know, April 1st is the budget deadline, will it be time for the legislature to review and have input to those decisions as well? Still a lot of questions. The budget proposal would create a new linkage between the state's assumption of growth in local Medicaid costs and local adherence to the property tax cap. While this proposal appears to reflect the belief that local officials are responsible in some way for rising costs, clearly the ground rules for Medicaid are set at the state and federal levels. The state needs to partner with counties and with our New York City to find real, lasting solutions to this problem without harming the more than 6 million New Yorkers enrolled in this program or adding to the local tax burden.
Very concerned about the governor's proposal, which it appear would increase all of the county's costs associated with Medicaid. My staff and I have looked through the proposal. We have determined that it would have increased our Medicaid costs by about $8 million in 2018 and 19 state budget years. So we are very concerned about what that would do in the long run if it continues. The county should not be blamed for this increased cost. It's all directly related to the cost of long-term care, nursing care, and the like for seniors. That is something that the counties have really no control over. We're willing to work with New York State to address the issue, but we shouldn't be blamed for the problem because this is just a systemic issue with regards to the growth in Medicaid costs and the number of individuals, especially seniors, who are in long-term care.
We all worry that even during these great economic times that the state continues to face a significant budget deficit, and how the state deals with that. Shifting Medicaid costs back down to counties isn't a solution to anything. It actually hurts the individuals who rely on Medicaid, but also really is an assault on property taxpayers. So we'll continue to monitor that, but at the same time really have to work together with counties across the state of New York to ensure that we grow the economy, create job opportunities, and really work to ensure our taxpayers get the highest degree of services at the lowest cost possible.
For our small county in southern tier New York State, I think the governor's budget is kind of a big concern because we don't really know what's going to happen with the Medicaid funding. We are staying right at the tax cap, but I will tell you it's a struggle. We can only do this for so long. We just really would not appreciate any more mandates put down from the state to the county government. So that is our biggest challenge. And I find that we spend most of our time dealing with the things that the state brings to us, and we seldom get an opportunity to move forward on our own projects.
What it would do is continue to hamper things that we in Clinton County think are important to our citizens. So, you know, we'll be, if we have to come up with that aforementioned $1.2 million, there will be services that people rely on that will in fact be cut.
It's a state program, and it's state rules, and it's the state system. We just basically implement their program, and so it makes it kind of difficult to be able to really understand what role we are actually playing when it comes to this increase in the deficit for Medicaid funding.
Our legislative board would be faced with the decision to cut the local services that local people deserve and want in order to pay for the state's share of Medicaid, or they would have to simply raise the taxes to pay for it.
So we're really concerned that there might be a mushrooming cloud of, you know, a ballooning of expense with regards to Medicaid, and that would be if those expenses are pushed down to the county level. Much of our tax levy as it is, we actually raise $12 million worth of taxes to pay our bills within the county in a $110 million budget. Only $12 million is the levy, and about 10 of that right now goes to cover those expenses. So a big increase in that area would it would definitely not be, it would be a burden on the citizens of the county.
I think the best quote is, "We are basically toast if nothing is changed fiscally. The counties, specifically in upstate New York, will not be able to afford the potential tax increase."
What do you feel the solution should be?
I think we need to have a stable, predictable weekly share, and that we can sit hand in hand with the state of New York and come up with a solution for this horrific problem.
We have a responsibility to the taxpayers back home. We need to bring the fight to Albany, to the Capitol. Engage your legislators. Please, we need that. We need that support. We have an obligation. Because when that budget is passed, if there's things that you're upset with today, you'll be doubly upset at the conclusion. So I'm asking you, on behalf of the board, on behalf of NYSAC and the staff, please help us take the fight to our state legislative body, our governor, and the state capitol. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
We must make the census count because everyone matters. Every single person in this country deserves to be counted, regardless of their immigration status. And the census is the most effective tool we have to determine the true number of people residing in our state. The census has nothing to do with citizenship. Our Constitution doesn't speak to citizenship. It speaks to enumeration and counting all individuals. Adding a question about citizenship would have incited widespread fear in immigrant communities and greatly impaired the accuracy of our count. And already in New York State, we are historically undercounted. Our democracy depends on an accurate count, and that's why everyone should matter. From determining the allocation of federal funds to electing congressional representatives, it's all tied to the census. And because we've had an undercount, we send more money to Washington than we get back. And we can ill afford to have another undercount, which is why it's really critically important that we count all individuals so that we can get more resources at this most critical time in the state of New York from Washington, D.C.
This state already is at a competitive disadvantage. We really need to encourage people to be counted. Remember that information is treated very carefully. You're not at risk for any reason if you participate in the census, but for all of us, it means protecting our congressional representation, but also preserving billions of dollars that come from the federal government to local communities to help improve special education, to enhance roads and bridges, to respond to important and critical needs. So everyone counts. So be counted.
As chair of the NYSAC Climate Change and Resiliency Committee, it has been my pleasure to lead a group of dedicated individuals across New York State that are addressing the issue of climate change. Today we have a workshop to teach other county officials what they can do. We have some tremendous success stories, not just in Erie County, but in Ulster County and in New York City, showing that you can reduce your greenhouse gas emissions, you can create a more resilient community to address these needs. So we've proven it, and now we're out there to show other communities how they can do it as well. One of the things that we looked at was doing a grand approach. We realized that not one area would do it, so we approached the reduction of greenhouse gases by looking at everything possible, from changing light bulbs in buildings to go into vehicles that are not carbon-based vehicles, electric vehicles, so to speak. And what we found out is if you have a comprehensive approach, you can reduce your greenhouse gas footprint and meet the standards of the Paris Climate Accords. We've already done it in Erie. Ulster's doing it. New York City's doing it as well, which if New York City can do it, and with all the things that they have in New York City, then pretty much every county in New York State can do it.
In Ulster County, we've finished our Government Operations Climate Action Plan, and we're here today to share a bit about that with the Climate and Resilience Committee.
Tell us, what have you done and what kind of results have you seen?
What the plan is really a full vision going forward of how to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions coming from county government operations. And we're looking at different ways to implement that across our vehicle fleet, transit fleet, and also our buildings and facilities.
Specifically, what have you done and what kind of results have you seen?
Well, we've done things like large-scale solar arrays, as well as energy efficiency and energy conservation measures. So the important thing is that we're both reducing our utility bills, which are county taxpayer dollars, and also relying more on renewable energy.
What would you recommend to other counties in New York State?
We would definitely recommend going through the process, creating a team, looking across your operations, and doing it in a really systematic fashion so that you're looking at both avoiding using energy and how you're going to deploy renewable energy.
Well, obviously, climate change is important. It is also very real. It affects our quality of life. It affects the air. It affects the water. It affects so many things that we do. Obviously, Westchester gets a lot of its water from upstate through the aqueducts. So I think the state needs to do more work on making sure that our water is clean, our environment and air is also clean.
Water quality is extremely important to Clinton County. We obviously rely a lot on the economy surrounding Lake Champlain, in the fisheries and the recreational opportunities. So that's something that's extremely important. We need to monitor the water quality because that if that body of water and its tributaries the quality lessens, it's going to mean bad things for our community.
I think some of the biggest issues today are the bail reform, which our state legislature passed last year. I think that pending legislation will be the ability to have centralized jail systems. I think the opioid crisis that bubbles up to the top.
Our workshop today deals with criminal justice reform, and one of my main concerns is the judge's inability now to make decisions regarding the public safety, regarding an assessment of risk of flight, and that's problematic. And I know that there's going to be some changes down the road, and hopefully there are, but I'm almost willing to concede some of my issues to get the judges back the ability and the power that they should have as elected officials as well.
What type of a problem does it cause, and what do you think the solution should be?
Well, I think that we should all be sitting down at the table, all of the stakeholders, the legislators certainly, but also law enforcement, sheriffs, chiefs of police, district attorneys. That didn't happen before. I know everybody keeps saying it did, but it never did. Nobody's aware of who sat at that table if it did.
The NYSAC workshop here on criminal justice reform is very important because it's the first time that you're actually having leadership from all over the state together under one roof, having a discussion about something that is changing our communities. It's not just having an impact on downstate communities, but in upstate communities. And so this is a wonderful opportunity for all of us to get on the same page.
What are the key elements in criminal justice reform that you would like to see happen?
There are. We have to revisit the bail reform, and so that we can include dangerousness as part of the considerations to allow for judges to make these decisions. Discovery, we would like to see discovery the 15 days change somewhat so that we have police officers on the street as opposed to having them indoors photocopying papers. And so there's a lot of good things about these reforms, but there's a lot of negative things that we have to address. And I think that if we were able to do that, people with common sense can get on the same common ground and achieve wonderful results.
We're talking about really the issue of preschool special needs children and the early intervention program that counties are very much involved with and spending a lot of money on, but also providing very high quality services for these children in an effort to really get them ready to go to kindergarten, hopefully to do well in school and thereafter. It's a big commitment. It's a serious endeavor. There's good evidence to show it's made a tremendous difference in these young children's lives. And so it's something I care deeply about. And although it falls within the Health Committee, I'm here because I care about it from an educational standpoint as well.
What do you feel the legislature needs to do in this area?
Well, we have continued to expand access to early intervention services. One of the county's concerns is the costs associated with it, but we have to make sure the programs are high quality, the teachers are high quality, that we're spending money wisely, taxpayer money, and that at the end of the day, these children who, with the proper services, many of them can be mainstreamed if they have language and physical advances that they need as children. We do everything we can to get them on a path to success in school.
We're talking about how we communicate with our constituency, and we have growing diversity, and there's more and more ways to communicate with people. So it's everything from our veteran stand down, which is the only one in the region where we have veterans come and avail themselves of all kinds of services. That's sort of old-fashioned in-person. We've started a book club to help communicate with younger people. We're using social media in as many ways as we possibly can, and I think it's especially important these days when the country seems riven, so divided by politics, right versus left, Republican versus Democrat, that we communicate with everyone about important things that matter to everyone. How many roads we're paving, how the Islanders are doing, the new arena that's being built, real tangible stuff that people really can grasp onto. How do we communicate that? How is our message consistent as our community becomes more diverse? As the way that people, the media works is becoming more and more fractured. That's what we're talking about today.
On 911, I was the first chief at the World Trade Center. So I was the first one in command. And that morning, we had a lot of people in danger. And I sent the firefighters up to evacuate the building and to rescue those that couldn't get out. That morning, I actually saw the plane aim and crash into the building. So I knew this was not an accident, that this was a terrorist event. And I knew also that I was going to the largest fire of my life.
What lessons have you learned now that you want to pass on to emergency preparedness officials in New York State?
I got on the radio and said a plane just crashed into the World Trade Center, and I asked for a second alarm, about 100 firefighters. Then I took about 60 seconds to think, slow down my thinking. What do I need to do now? And I got on the radio again. And this time, I said to the dispatcher that the plane was aiming for the building. My exact words, that we had a number of floors on fire to transmit a third alarm. So even before I got there, I'm asking for over 150 firefighters to come, and I gave very specific orders what I wanted them to do. And when we arrived, we knew that thousands of people were in their greatest moment of need. But the question for us is, how do we get past all this? How do we come back from an event like that? Or other devastating events that we've seen, from hurricanes to active shooters. We read about this in the paper too often. And too often, each one of us in the room experiences it. And I would say there's a process we go through. There is a process we go through of adaptive resilience. In New York State, the recommendations I would give is that we need to work together. And these principles are ones of connecting, collaborating, and coordinating. And those three simple principles will allow us to rescue those that are in their greatest moment of need.
Do you ever wonder why those?
It is so critically important to make sure that our government has equal representation between men and women, because their voices need to be heard. There's so many issues and perspectives that women bring to the table. And I know this because when I ran for town board 25 years ago, I was the only woman on the board. When I was in county government, a county clerk, I was the only woman in county government. When I served in Congress, there was only 20% of us, and for a while I was the only woman in statewide office. And so I'm acutely aware what it's like to be the only woman in a room, but I also have supported NYSAC and this Women's Leadership Council since its inception, and have spoken every year because I believe that women can help each other rise up. They need to talk about the war stories and how they got through them, and have a camaraderie that this organization provides them. And speakers like we're having today and other initiatives are so important. So their voices are important, but also it's tough to get women to even run for office because of all the barriers that are in place. But the women in this room have broken through that, and they are role models for the next generation to step up and serve.
The women in this room
and the enlightened men who embrace women equally, you are setting the tone and are the role models for the next wave. When they see that you've accomplished it, you've overcome all the challenges of trying to balance the responsibilities at home, and yes, there's a lot of nights when there's just no dinner. That's what a phone call's about for the pizza. I mean, that's what it's all about. And the kids and all the events that you may be missing, or the frustration of trying to dial for dollars. I mean, nobody likes to raise money, but women feel it's particularly impolite because your mother would tell you you shouldn't be asking other people for money. But that's how you have to run for office, right? Unless you're independently wealthy. And you have to figure out the child care piece, the home front piece, the whole idea of confidence that so many people don't have. But I'm hoping when you listen to our keynote speaker, you're going to walk out of here and just say, I can rule the world, because you truly can. So a lot of it's women holding themselves back and not displaying the confidence in themselves. And this was my barrier, why I didn't run for office for a very long time. I was going to be behind the scenes. So I've been there, and I feel my job and the job of the women in this room is to open the doors and say, it can be done and we need you. And what are you waiting for?
Harvard Business Review published an article a couple of years ago that indicates when we meet someone for the first time, we're asking ourselves two things. One, can I respect that person? And respect is connected with competence. And two, can I trust that person? And trust is connected with warmth and likability. Where a lot of us get it wrong is we lead with, you should respect me, I'm competent. We lead with our skill set. We're really blowing it. We should be leading with, you can trust me, which is connected to warmth and likability. And today what we talked about is how can you appear warm and likable with your body language, your tone, your pitch. You're saying more than you think. And sometimes what you're conveying doesn't match who you are on the inside. So today we pulled back the curtain and we learned how to best influence and persuade not just others, but ourselves. What are we saying without saying a word?
I keep saying partnership, but it is a partnership because we're all in this together. We're all New Yorkers, and we're at our best when we're working together.
It's incredibly valuable to hear what are the best practices in other counties around this gorgeous state of ours. You know, downstate is very different from upstate, but we have a lot of the same issues when it comes to budget, when it comes to collective bargaining, when it comes to paving roads, just really the nitty-gritty of county government.
I've been a member of NYSAC now going on 7 years. When I came at the County Board of Legislators, it is important to be a member because you learn so much. You can also talk with your colleagues, get best practices, and if you get the best practices, you make your community, you make your county, and you make the state a better place.
Every county should belong to NYSAC because you are constantly updated on the issues going on at the state level, and it's a great help to small counties. As the county executive, I encourage our legislature to make sure that they come up here to the conferences so that they can see firsthand how we're dealing or how we're going to deal with issues that are pressing county government, whether it's on the social responsibility level or the fiscal responsibility level.
I've been county executive now for 2 years. We've been a member of NYSAC since I started, and it's been incredibly valuable. Just as a sounding board for what other counties are doing, what's working, what's not working, and also just to get that perspective. And I think together we're stronger.
There's a strong vibe coming out of this conference, whether you're from Long Island, the North Country, the Southern Tier of New York, Capital District where we are, Western New York, all corners of the state. There's a strong voice of unity. There's a strong voice of working together, united, to partner with the state. The state of New York has a deficit, in particular in its Medicaid program, and this county, these counties want to partner with the state together to help address that deficit.
How can people get more information?
Folks can tune into the www.nysac.org, which is the association's website, and monitor that website and also its Twitter feed as well.